Morning, guys. I decided to start the vlog early, so I have my weapon of choice within God's armor today. So I have these phones. This is all that I can find. I have a baby one somewhere, and I don't know where it's at. I'll show you. Literally, they're usually in front of my face. Anything that I lose is typically not lost. So it's just a matter of being able to fucking keep up with myself more than it is the stuff that I have. But both are challenging. I have this it's called nourishing spray. It's not a leave-in conditioner. It says all-in-one. I don't know, I thought it was different, but it's a camellia and aloe. I don't know. It made my hair like healthier. I feel like I have a speech impediment recently, and I don't know if it's from the weed or from me being stressed out so much. But I stopped smoking flower, and I started smoking these pens. Apparently you're supposed to let them heat up first. I never really do that. It's will work better than what I do though. So I don't know. The shampoos and conditioners that are my favorite though are this Briogeo Don't Despair Repair, which is kind of depressing. And it reminds me of a house that I was at in DC one time when I was little. Like, it's something like you would get at an expensive hotel or some shit. But I always liked the way it smelled. So I don't fucking... She stole a car. And she said that her mom wouldn't let her drive it because she had her license. It was a Scion. That's what they tried to say that I stole. The picture was taken way earlier that year, and they can't necessarily prove that I stole a car because I didn't steal the car, and they don't really know what happened with the car when I was in the car. But I did tell the cops what happened in real life, and why he lied, because he forced me in the car. He forced me to drive the car down the road. So, it's not like I keep in contact with him. I wouldn't say I was close with any of his family members except for his sister. But he doesn't even know that. And then, fun fact about Emmy, she fucking hated his sister. Hated his sister. But she wanted me to talk about why and how it's popular. So I need to go get a hair clip. I decided when I was young, my favorite accessory was probably perfume. Because it wasn't just the way that it smelled. It made me feel something. And I felt like each one kind of expressed something different. And it was like something that could be made out to be personal. But it's like, it's according to each person. So it was all like, I feel like that's when I started like questioning energy, is when I started wearing a bunch of different perfume. Because I would wear one day and then I would feel one way one day and then I would wear a different one every now and then. And I would just feel I would have a different attitude. I would have sometimes like a different, not necessarily opinion, but a different outlook. But, she said that I didn't seem like I had a lot of pressure on me all the time. I feel like a lot of my life was manipulated according to the people that I went to school with. We were doing like entertainment shit. I was modeling. And I had posted on the internet. And I wasn't supposed to because I was modeling. I posted a bunch of pictures and a bunch of makeup and clothes. They weren't like skanky or anything like that. It was more like I was just fucking bored. But everything was pretty much a debate. Every kind of like social interaction or like friendship. And sometimes we would have shit in common that we would talk about. Or we would talk about like other people's behavior a lot. Not so much as their actions. But it was a lot about the way that people behave and how you can't do shit that doesn't match and shit like that. I could do a purse haul. didn't have one in high school, but I didn't like need one in high school. So that's probably why I didn't have one in high school. Like this perfume, it's called 360 Red. It's a body spray, it's not perfume. It smells like hotel soap. Which it was something that I liked, I liked like hotel towels and fucking hospital blankets, and I would get really fucking stressed out all the time because it's just like different stuff would happen. And I thought about going to college, but then everybody wanted me to cheer, play softball. I don't want to fucking do either one of those. Oh my god. I got this from my grandma. It's got shit on it now, though. It's got like makeup on it. I got it from the dollar store, man, but I leave her stuff in the bathroom because every now and then I'll find her stuff in like odd places. So I started leaving my fucking clothes in places that I leave. I don't know, my mom always wanted me to make a video diary, and I told her when I was really young that I would. Also, I think Amy had mentioned it, but she never explained like how people on like YouTube and the things that she would explain as her reason for depression. She never told me like why the things that they did bothered her. But I would suggest things like I knew like they would like try to sell people products that sucked so that they could have credit for having the best quality of things and whatever. But I've been around a lot of like self-destructive behavior and indecisiveness and just hostile shit that people do to each other. And I think the mass majority of that was because I was popular. And I didn't choose to have a lot of attention. I didn't really do things for attention. I feel like our friend group was the most connected, but we were probably the most watched out of anybody. and most of my friend group was guys. It wasn't girls, and the girls that I would hang out with at school, each and every one of them would only hang out with each other at school, so it was kind of like normal or whatever. And I remember that there would be people that would try to copy like things about me and try to figure things out about me so that they could do the same things and be the same person. That was really fucking creepy. Outside of school, I spent a lot of time going to church. I would smoke weed with my friends, but like we all kind of had good grades and didn't really do anything bad. We just dressed differently than most people because most of them would wear like the cowboy boots and like buckle. I had some Wrangler jeans recently, and my mom was like, fuck no, she threw them out. But they were just like baggy mom jeans. I don't know, she said they were 36 or 34, 32 or something like that. And men's. But I like the way that they fit, and I was gonna keep them. But she didn't want me to wear them like that. So that didn't happen. And I probably wouldn't have worn them with like the clothes that I had now. I would have had to buy more shit to wear with them. I didn't talk to my friends a lot. I had like one or two friends, and I would talk to them every now and then. It was more so just like them begging me to talk to them in general. And then I would, and they would try to create like situations that were like ridiculously dramatic. Like they would try to start arguments or like just really do anything for attention. I don't know, none of them really had respect for themselves or anybody else. But like, I don't think that they wanted respect or anything. But nobody was mean to anybody. There wasn't like a group that would go around bullying people or anything like that. But when people say like that people knew their place, it's more so that like, you know, the kids that were doing really weird shit didn't mess with the kids that weren't. Except they did. They would watch people and they would try to copy people, and then they would like pervert a lot of stuff, like Joanne's a stripper and like all this other shit, and it would be like a sophomore. But you know, there wasn't like, we had the parole officers at our school, and I feel like the biggest problem at school was people, like, there would be these couples or just like people that knew each other, and they would just, like, it was PDA all the fucking time, and there were people that would get in trouble for it, have to go to the office and get suspended and all kind of shit. And then there was a whole incident where there was a rumor going around that Wes put a cat litter box in the bathrooms at school, and my mom told me about that. She had read something about it. She told me to read something about it. I don't really remember. But these people would like try to find any angle to be friends with us. And then they would harass the shit out of us. They would show up like at our house in the middle of the fucking night and like go take pictures. Or like act like they're driving down the street and be on our road taking pictures and like posing like they were doing something, like they were like going to bars or something, and they weren't doing anything, you know. It was really fucking creepy. Because it was like, if you were pretty, you were basically famous. Because there were so many fucking people, and we had North, East Rowan, South Rowan, South Iredell, North Iredell, and then West Iredell. And everybody at all these fucking schools knew each other. And you had to have your friend group, and every fucking friend group that was valid had to have friends from other schools. So I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but I had to move schools growing up. We moved a lot, and it would just be like the landlord didn't want to fucking like fix things on the house that had been broken that like weren't our fault, like pipe issues and shit like that. Like, and the thing, we had always paid for everything that needed to be paid for, but there would be a lot of times where they just wouldn't fix it, and we would have to move. Or like when we had the big house in Troutman on the farm, the people that owned the house before us had it remodeled and like was literally deemed satanic, and said that they would never live there again, and that whatever was left in the house to keep the house. And it was just this big ass thing that happened because we weren't planning on ever moving out of there, but they decided suddenly that they were going to take the house from under us because they wanted it back. And I mean, like, we would pick pecans during the fall, and we had dogs and chickens, and fucking a duck. We grew plants, like we had hibiscus, and like there were other flowers in the front yard. I don't know. I had a friend that lived down the road. Her name was Reagan. I think she's famous now. She's like famous on TikTok or something. a lot of the people that I went to school with got famous. I wanted to be like a politician or something ultimately. Like, I started studying a lot of shit. I knew a lot about what was going on in the economy. And I didn't really have interest in, like, going out getting drunk every Friday night or anything like that. I just kind of, I wanted to sleep and I liked smoking, but I was studying, like, the Bible. I was genuinely studying the Bible. And I don't know, I spent a lot of my time doing that and watching sermons. But that was after I stopped being friends with her. I wasn't, not to say that I wasn't in my right mind when I was friends with her, but I didn't, like, I was very heartbroken at the time, and I didn't know how to put myself back together so that I could, like, be a good person to the people around me. And she was just very fucking, like, egotistical. It's like everything that she said had to do with her value to herself and nothing to do with anything productive. She never had good intentions with literally anybody she was fucking friends with. This girl would be friends with people because she could, like, I don't know. And she would just, like, every friend that she could have, like, anybody that would talk to her, that never lasted more than a week, and she would talk shit about every fucking one of them. And my mom, like, does her fair share of talking shit, so that wasn't uncommon to me, like, and so did so many girls. But she had values like loyalty and stuff, and she kept her friends for most of her life, and most of the time they knew, like, that they had good intentions for each other, if that makes any sense. But they never fucking just sat in a room and talked shit about each other that I knew about. It would always be people that had done things, like, betrayed her, like, told her secrets, or made up lies about her, or tried to get her in trouble for something they did, or something like that. I don't know, every friend that I had, like, wanted to talk to one of my boyfriends, or they always wanted to be extremely, like, close. Like, they always wanted to be my friend, but act like we were in a relationship, and they would say that the friendship wasn't valid if it wasn't like that, and they were jealous of, like, small things. Like, I didn't consider, like, sleeping in the same bed with somebody at a sleepover to be, like, intimacy, and they would almost make it seem like that's what it was, and it would freak me the fuck out. And then it would just kind of be like, you know, I would just get distant, and then they would come up with some shit like, oh, well, so and so and so and so thinks I'm cute, and I would just be like, okay, cool, because I couldn't decipher whether or not that was to make me jealous, so that they could, like, play out some act on fucking, like, hurting my like, trying to hurt my feelings, you know. it was a lot of like, oh, well, you won't do it, so I'm gonna do it, and I'm better than you, and you don't make yourself available enough. And a lot of like, just a lot of like pulling and shoving towards shit that I didn't care about. And it was a lot of masking. There was this girl, and I went out with one of my friends one night, and everybody thought this chick won homecoming queen. And she had like the most popular boyfriend in middle school and stuff like that, so I didn't really think anything of it. But later on, I was out one night, and we had a friend that was at their house, and one of my friends went to go pick them up to buy weed and take them home. And so we met the girl, and I had seen her at school, but I'd never talked to her before. Yeah, I never talked to her before, and I didn't plan on it, but I met her there, and then I met her when I went with one of my friends to her boyfriend's. He had a shed behind his mom's house, and had electricity, and they were staying together there. Yeah. I don't know, it was the first crack house that I ever went to. Probably the last crack house that I ever went to. Most of my friends, when we went out, lived in the suburbs. We would most of the time just drive around though, and go to McDonald's, shit like that. Smoke weed. We went to parks a lot. But yeah, most of the people's houses that I've been in, they look like something out of a magazine, including my own, so I don't really think that a crack house and that ended up being the girl that won homecoming. Lord. I don't think any of that was a coincidence. I feel like all of that was a planned fucking act on humanity, and it's a hate crime. But children in situations like that, and the teachers, and they would make malicious, deviant fucking comments towards children that implied horrible shit. And then there would be girls that like would threaten other girls if they didn't like submit to them, and sometimes it would be sexual, and it was really fucking scary. It was really weird. So I got in a lot of fights, and it was something that I had to cope with that had happened. I had to explain to my family like why exactly I had to get in fights. But when you have so many like students in middle school that say things as fucked up and like think as fucked up as they did, like they would actively harass people And then most of the time it was like sexual harassment, and they would praise sexual abuse as a concept and bring it to school as a topic of conversation. And if you weren't fucking popular in middle school, you were one of those people, and it was like really weird, freaky people, and it was like living in a fucking nightmare. Teachers would make sexual comments in elementary school about students, and they would imply things like, I got called out for having a chapstick that was Coca-Cola flavored. And I remember there was a trend where these girls would go to school and they would claim to be domestic violence victims on a regular fucking basis, and I never talked to them. Like, they would just do things like this. And like, if you wouldn't be their friend, they would fucking harass you. But they would do it in a different way. They would just talk about you. And then we'd be like, oh, that's not harassment. We're just talking about you. We're just talking about you. And it was kind of like, no, but you're talking about me in front of me at school where I go to school. As a fucking 10-year-old. And at 10 years old, like, that's literally what came out of my mouth. So I was able to, like, understand what was going on around me. But I definitely knew that the basis of most of the judgment and shit that went down was extremely biased and racist. So I had about 3 teachers that I actually liked. I don't remember having any teachers that I liked in high school at all. I think at that point, you know, I just didn't care how I was treated. And I had one teacher that I met in high school, and he was very respectful. But, he definitely had a moral code that he literally taught the class. So if that doesn't say anything, I wouldn't know how to explain it better. Thank you. That was a burger. What I did in class. These hoes. These bitches would what? Oh my god, that is a pack of cigarettes. What the fuck? Every fucking day they would come up with a topic of conversation and it had to be about me. And the trick was to convince everybody that this one girl with this big ass forehead was so popular and I wasn't. And that was their scheme, so that they could figure out what I was doing. And she had to be a part of it. And I've never ignored someone so fucking hard in my life. Because if you could sit in class and talk about your dick for 3 fucking hours, I should be able to pick my fucking nose in my own goddamn room on camera. So that's what the fuck I did. Because me picking my nose and you talking about your dick, that's two very drastically different things. And somehow or another you tried to psychically convince me that it was the same measure of inappropriate. And it is not. It was so, like, you just never know who the fuck is around you until you, like, wake up one day and nothing is expected, like, what you expect it to be. All of a sudden. This is probably the best way it is. It looks natural. But I promise you there's so much weird shit that people do to trick people, and then they blatantly lie. And it was another thing that was a trend was when somebody knew something about somebody's daily routine in any sense, they would literally make it out to be themselves and celebrate all of the awful things that they actually did in their daily life. And it was a whole fucking humiliation ritual that went around school in a literal sense. Some of the dumbest shit that I ever encountered is the reason that I started getting good grades. Because when there's nothing to talk about, when there's literally no one around you that's distracting you with malicious intentions, you know, it makes it easier to focus on school. You see this bullshit? There was one girl, her name was Abby Klontz, and she had a sister, her name was Sarah Klontz. And they were the only family in that entire fucking town that owned a single one of those businesses, and every single one of those businesses got shut down. Ironically, before COVID. And then they blamed it on COVID. So, I get tired of thinking of myself as somebody that's a fucking pawn in a game. And I was already in ASEC and I was already in honor roll. So I had all the credits to graduate, and I decided to leave. I don't know, I can get a new ID, a social security card, and I'm sure I can get my job back at the bar and pay a phone bill or two. But there's no fucking reason to do that right now. It's not like it's gonna change anything. Yeah. Literally, my friend in elementary school did everything in her power that I would never have a successful relationship. Why she was thinking about relationships that young, I don't know. But instead, people ask me why I was, as if I were somebody that I'm not. When I've done nothing but express myself. Maybe it creates a contradiction to other people, but like, I feel like if I was meant to be a person that I'm not, then maybe I would be a different person, and I'm not. So I'm not gonna hold myself responsible for some of the actions. something that may or may not even be considered an emotion. I don't know, I'm not gonna deal with her bullshit. She wasn't gonna walk in my house and fucking tell me that my parents care more about me than her. And instead switch the roles without walking away with a fucking wake-up call. She sent some guy to date me so that he could try to do the same thing. I don't know, I wasn't grateful that she was my friend. I didn't feel like it was something that was a fucking accomplishment. She certainly felt like I was an achievement. She was like, please don't ever label me. I said, why not? She was like, if I was a label, I would want to be you. It's like, well, a label isn't necessarily the way you describe a person. It's more so like where you use to describe a product. So, I mean, my question was if she was a product of her own environment. You know, like, boys would always threaten suicide if the girls would break up with them. It started in middle school. The high schoolers would ride our bus, and they would tell us about their boyfriends all the time. And that was like one of the most popular things that would happen. Boys didn't really talk shit about girls though, unless the girls would beg for attention. Like, it was mostly about each other. But the girls would insist that they needed the attention. And the boys would talk to them until they slept with them, and then they would stop talking to them. But that was high school. Middle school was kind of about territory because everybody knew that everybody was going to be split up when they went to high school. So you had to figure out who you were popular with, and you had to find friends from other schools. So that when you got to high school, you weren't gonna be a loner. There was a lot of things that happened, like, in that time. Like, there were so many girls that swore to God they were gay. And then guys would do the opposite. And it was a trend, like, for it to be a valid relationship, your girlfriend had to be bisexual. Which, I don't know, kind of did something to the way that people thought about relationships. And then by the end of high school, nobody wanted to be in a relationship. After high school, everybody settled. And just kind of got with the first person that was available. I don't think you should wait till somebody dies to talk about life. But I never waited to do that. It's hard to bring up a subject that nobody wants to talk about, especially when there's no reason to talk about it because somebody had passed away at the time. But these girls were obsessed with something, and it was demonic. And it wasn't a boyfriend or even an ego trip. And they didn't give a fuck that she wanted to find herself and express herself. And they called her selfish and pretty much all the things that she accused me of.